China in historic transition. Challenges and risks abound. China's problems are daunting. Slower growth, social imbalances, industrial overcapacity, massive pollution, global volatility. How to address such diverse, complex issues? China has an overarching integrated strategy. It's called the 5 major development concepts: innovative development, coordinated development, green development, open development, shared development. How can China halt and reverse the devastating pollution of air, water, and soil without undermining essential economic growth? In this episode, Closer to China explores the 3rd major concept, green development. China has seen rapid economic development in the past few decades, but the cost has been heavy. Since the 1980s, the environment of some picturesque river towns has suffered greatly from industrial pollution. Industries like mining and cement have polluted China's air, water, and soil. China's coastal Zhejiang province's struggle with the environment exemplifies that of the whole country. To chase economic growth, Zhejiang's environment was sacrificed. Lu Chunzhong, spokesperson of Zhejiang's Environmental Protection Bureau, shares the painful lesson.
Zhejiang has indeed encountered bottlenecks in terms of its environment and resources deployment. A series of prominent environmental issues have also caused concerns within our province.
To address the serious pollution, the Zhejiang government took a tough stance on violations of the environmental protection law. Thousands of polluting workshops were closed down as a result, and heavy industries like mining and papermaking are no longer favored by the government as they were before. But will it slow down Zhejiang's economy? This is a concern for many people. The challenge for China is how to motivate individuals and institutions to protect the environment. That's why I'm here in Zhejiang province, Anji County, which transformed itself from a polluted mining area right here into a green center of ecology-friendly agriculture, industry, and tourism. How did it happen, and can it be emulated? Anji is located in Zhejiang's northwest mountainous area. Those who've watched the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon may remember this scene filmed in Anji's popular tourist site, the Sea of Bamboos. Anji's name comes from China's ancient literature, the Book of Songs. It means comfortable and beautiful. But like the rest of Zhejiang, Anji's environment has suffered from pollution since the 1980s. Between 2003 and 2005, the county closed down 3 mining companies and 1 cement factory in Yutsun. And the village's GDP dropped from over 3 million RMB to about 200,000 RMB, equivalent to $25,000, a drop of more than 90%. I asked Shan Jinyan, party chief of Anji County, about the difficulties encountered after the closure of the polluting companies.
Actually, I think Anji's economy was stuck in stalemate, or at least almost caught in a standstill 10 years ago. We had realized the importance of environmental protection, but hadn't found a way out to enrich the people through development on the basis of environmental protection.
Then local residents tried to find an alternative to compensate for their economic losses. Over time, a healthy natural environment brought new fortune. Many locals began making money in an eco-friendly way from the area's rich resources of bamboo. I'm in Yutsun Village, Anji County, where in 2005, the then Zhejiang Party Secretary Xi Jinping catalyzed Anji's pioneering transformation. Secretary Xi said at the time, "In the past we said we wanted clear rivers and green mountains, and we wanted mountains of gold and silver at the same time. In fact, clear rivers and green mountains are mountains of gold and silver." Anji has proved him right. Describe the bamboo industry here, because you're really the center of bamboo, and bamboo really personifies environmental protection and using the environment and the development at the same time. So what is Anji's role in bamboo production and bamboo research? How are you a center for bamboo?
I should say bamboo is somewhat unique to Anji. We can even say without bamboo, Anji could never enjoy the prosperity it does today. Particularly for the general public, bamboo constitutes the #1 source of income for the public. Up till now, we've already developed 7 types of more than 3,000 products made from bamboo. For example, we Anji people wear underwear made of bamboo fiber. We extract sap out of bamboo to make drinks. In particular, we process bamboo and recently have made a leapfrog development with our design finishing. By the end of last year, the total value of our bamboo industry had reached 18 billion RMB, or $2.5 billion, which puts us well at the top in the international community. So in Anji, we have expanded our processing of bamboos from its tips to the poles to the roots. Now the whole bamboo is utilized both with physical and chemical processing. We call it eating the bamboo clean.
China's President Xi Jinping was the party secretary of Zhejiang province between 2002 and 2007. He focused on promoting green development. And in 2005, after studying Anji's encouraging transformation, he offered these comments in a meeting with local officials.
一定不要说再去想着走老路，还是要迷恋着是吧过去的那种发展模式。所以刚才你们讲了，下决心停掉一些这个矿山这个都是高明之举。这个是绿水青山就是金山银山这个我说我们过去讲的，您要既要绿水青山，又要金山银山。实际上，绿水青山就是金山银山。
Anji's success story has been recognized internationally. In 2012, Anji received the UN Habitat Scroll of Honor Award for improving its environment. But not all cities or counties are as lucky as Anji to have recyclable resources such as bamboo. How can they make ends meet without harming the environment? Although Zhejiang is one of China's wealthiest provinces, there are poor areas, and it is these poor areas that have become dependent on polluting industries, like papermaking, dyeing mills, and coal-fired power plants, causing great damage to the environment. What's worse, they also contaminate the sources of rivers that run through the province. The Zhejiang provincial government has implemented an innovative system called eco-compensation to encourage those regions to protect the environment by transferring funds based on how well they meet certain standards like water quality, forest size, and the like. So, how does eco-compensation work? Qiandao Lake, or Thousand Islet Lake, is a well-known tourist attraction in Zhejiang's Chun'an County. It also plays a critical role in Zhejiang's ecological system. Residents in large nearby cities like Hangzhou and Shanghai hope that the lake would become a source of fresh drinking water. But in the early 2000s, the deteriorating water quality of the Xinan River, which feeds Qiandao Lake, became a headache for Chun'an County. The river runs through Zhejiang, but upstream it first runs through neighboring Anhui province, and most of the pollutants come from Anhui. So fixing the problem requires commitments from both provinces. But why should Anhui, a less developed province, pay to improve the environment of Zhejiang, a more developed province? The problem became so serious that the central government stepped in. To settle the dispute in 2012, the parties developed the eco-compensation framework. Under this mechanism, if water from Anhui attains a mutually agreed standard, Zhejiang would pay Anhui. And if it didn't, then Anhui would pay Zhejiang. The challenge, of course, was to agree on a mutually acceptable standard. Zhu Dongqi, party chief of Chunan County, explains how Zhejiang and Anhui came to agreement.
So since you had this difference of standards between lake and river quality, what was the process by which you reached agreement? Did the central government get involved? At what level of the provincial government was involved? What was the process by which you ultimately came to agreement?
Negotiations started 3 years ago. In the beginning, Anhui province was developing at a slower rate upstream. Over the recent years, their development also started to catch up and imposed higher demands for environmental protection. Therefore, our two provinces decided to have a detailed discussion on the protection of the environment. Sometimes we even debated with each other on water protection. In fact, such negotiations took a fairly long time. The central government also recognized the issue long before. That is why they could promote a mutual guarantee mechanism to address conflicts between our provinces. The current situation is actually a result of government intervention.
How does the eco compensation system work? Who funds it, and how is the monies allocated?
Ministries and departments of the central government took the lead in initiating the compensation mechanism. Zhejiang and Anhui provinces together set up a mechanism with a fund co-invested by the central and local fiscal departments. We now set aside 500 million RMB or $75 million every year. If the water quality meets the standard, Anhui gets all of the money. If not, we get compensation. But our focus is not on the money. We care more about ecological protection. If Anhui fails to earn the subsidy, it means they're not paying enough attention to protecting the ecosystem. Many foreign scholars that I know think that ecological compensation is something we do when the economic development threatens or interferes with the ecosystem, in order to compensate the system itself for ecological recovery so that the balance can be achieved again. However, in China, the ecological compensation has a regional, strategic, or policy-wise value. In other words, ecologically important or fragile regions in China are often poverty-stricken areas. The ecological system pattern demonstrates that China's ecological development is not in line with economic development. Therefore, the ecosystem upstream of a river is very important, but they're usually very fragile and people nearby often lead a poor life. However, the downstream region, which enjoys the river flowing down from the upstream, gets the resources and develops very well. People gather there and the economy booms. So, in a sense, imbalances occur between regions. The upstream loses opportunities for development for the sake of their devotion to ecological protection. Based on such an understanding, the downstream is defined as a benefiting region that should compensate the upstream's interests in its own profit-making process.
To implement the eco-compensation system, the central government set up a water quality monitoring station on the river near the border between Anhui and Zhejiang provinces. I wanted to get a closer look, so I went to the station to meet with the deputy director of the Chunan Environmental Protection Bureau, Wu Dongshu.
This is a national water quality monitoring station. Water samples are taken for checks every 4 hours. Data is passed over to Beijing, mainly for analysis of the water quality in Anhui.
And where are you sampling this? Are you sampling it right outside the station here or at different places in the river?
You can see the sample taking platform outside.
Is that an accurate sample of the whole river, or shouldn't you have to take it at different parts in the river in case there are differences?
The monitoring station takes water from Xin'anjiang River's cross-section as water flows from Anhui into Zhejiang.
But the program has uncertainties. The central government will soon stop providing funding for the project, making people wonder where alternative funds will come from.
In the relationship between upstream and downstream on a river, to use your example, is the payment from downstream to upstream a long-term sustainable one?
This is an issue at the core of China's fiscal institution. As China undergoes national fiscal coordination, is it better to consider the downstream-upstream compensation mechanism and regard it as an important parameter in the tax system of the country? That is it better for the downstream to give the money to upstream through the Central Committee? Or is it better for the money to go directly to the upstream? This is a general reform of the fiscal institution, and we are still exploring new options. Personally, I think such a mutual compensation mechanism is beneficial to both sides, as their interests get closely entwined. It will be easier for them to coordinate and cooperate with each other in a win-win situation.
Moreover, the Zhejiang government always wants to elevate the water quality standard, but the Anhui government naturally always digs in its heels.
Water quality in Anhui is evaluated according to river water standards, while in Qiandao Lake it is by lake water standards. So the discharge and protection criteria also vary. Our standard is higher than upstream in Anhui.
The eco-compensation system has encouraged government officials in Zhejiang to restore the ecology. But turning a beautiful environment into cash is a more challenging task.
I'm in Longmen Village, the source of the Qiantang River, the mother river of Zhejiang province. It's one of the poorest areas in Zhejiang, but the village governing body, the village committee, has instituted a series of tough measures to protect the environment. Villagers can no longer cut down trees, and they have strict rules for cultivation. Using eco-compensation funds, the head of the village persuaded 34 households to build home inns and more than 100 households to grow organic foods and provide diverse tourism services. They set up a tourism company and villagers became shareholders. This is such a beautiful place. Tell me about Longmen Village, where we are, and what the background of the village is.
Longmen Village is at the source of the mother river of Zhejiang, that is the Qiantang River, and has altogether 317 households in the village. In the past, the whole village was a mess with turbid water and a messy environment. In 2013, we carried out some village overhauls and improved the surrounding environment. Afterwards, we developed a green industry and green tourism. Now the agritainment industry is developing quite well, with 34 households offering tourists 400 beds for homestay services.
Tourism has already become the major source of income for the village. From 2012 to 2015, the average village household income more than doubled. Many villagers who were migrant workers have now come back home. Not only Longmen Village, but all of Kaihua County has benefited from the financial incentives of the eco-compensation system. The county's party chief, Xiang Hui Liang, explains how.
Currently, the eco-compensation system is very important in protecting the environment in Zhejiang. How is it applied in Kaihua County?
The provincial government offers institutional guarantees for Kaihua's green development. First, the provincial government canceled GDP evaluation on Kaihua County. This was done in order to prevent Kaihua from getting devoted to its industrial development. Rather, industries that have no pollution and low energy consumption are encouraged. Therefore, the elimination of GDP evaluation has relieved Kaihua of that pressure. Secondly, if Kaihua fails to meet the provincial average in turning in industrial taxation, the provincial government and fiscal departments will help pay the gap. Thirdly, the water and forest coverage in Kaihua will be taken for evaluation. Firstly, clean water has to meet grade 1 or grade 2 levels. If Kaihua meets the demand, the provincial government will then give subsidies to Kaihua. If the ratio of days when the water quality meets the standard in a year increases by 1%, 3 million RMB will be set aside for subsidies. Together, we can say our provincial subsidy each year should reach 200 million RMB. This would account for 30% of the local fiscal revenues. The special fund for ecological money transfer in our provincial fiscal department reached 200 million RMB in 2006 and 3.7 billion in 2015. Subsidies from the provincial government are mainly used to develop the county's ecological infrastructure and ecological recovery. If we can manage the ecological environment in Kaihua well, then it would really be a beautiful place of clean water and green mountains. The general public can benefit from developing agritainment and county tourism. In this way, the people enjoy great economic benefits by creating their wealth out of the government's favorable policies, instead of directly using subsidies transferred from the government.
Environmental protection is high on the agenda of the Chinese government. China has instituted tougher environmental protection laws and is showing greater determination to enforce them. Under the new law, there will be no cap on penalties levied for pollution. And not just environmental regulators, but also NGOs can take legal action against any company for violations of the law. Today, even the public can monitor polluting firms on their cell phones.
Green development will no doubt add to the cost of enterprises, but such addition is necessary and reasonable. In fact, in the past, we never considered the cost of exploiting resources or impairing public health, which is not right. To give you an example, due to heavy air pollution, I believe incidences of respiratory diseases are increasing by double-digit amounts. Lung cancer has already almost certainly become the top killer in all cancer cases. If we therefore take such costs of health into consideration, the actual cost may far outnumber the profit companies make without proper pollution treatment. So we are actually making shoestring profits at a heavy cost to society. If we do not implement strict supervision, some companies will also loosen their standards in pollution treatment, which cannot guarantee fair competition as a whole. As long as we put in place such a mechanism featuring a level playing field, we will be able to make solid progress in environmental protection.
And the company is compelled to pay for whatever environmental damage it has done. Significantly, China has promised to peak its carbon emissions by 2020 and increase the use of clean energy. China is also promoting carbon trading as a key measure to cut emissions. Already, 7 regional carbon markets are up and running in 4 municipalities, 1 city, and 2 provinces. China's National Development and Reform Commission, the NDRC, plans to launch a national market in 2017.
Carbon trading is to ask the heavy emitters to pay for the cost of their emissions. But this market should have the characteristic of resilience and flexibility. Because of the market tool of control, companies will pay more attention to energy saving and try their best to promote self-innovation to effectively control carbon emissions.
Another name for carbon emissions trading is cap and trade. A cap means the maximum pollution allowed for each entity, and trade means that each entity, to the extent that it pollutes less than the maximum, can sell a carbon currency in a carbon market. In just 2 years, the China-Beijing Environment Exchange has traded more than 5 million tons of carbon dioxide with a volume of about 240 million yuan, or about $36 million. Many experts believe that as the trading continues, those numbers will only grow.
Personally, I believe we cannot continue with the past environmental protection concepts. That is, to allow decision makers or even the public to actually make the decision upon environmental and economic development. Many people would cover up their motives, continue their pursuit of economic development as a top priority, but somehow use green development as an excuse. That is to say, when conflicts arise between economic growth and environmental protection, economic benefits would still be their priority. Therefore, in the context of green development today, many local governments, not only those in developed regions, but also in developing and underdeveloped regions, should all have an understanding that green development is a sustainable way of development in the real sense. In other words, developing and underdeveloped regions enjoy their competitiveness in bountiful resources, beautiful environment, and sound ecology. If they sacrifice their advantages for short-term economic development, they may succeed in rapid growth over 1 year or 5 years. But they'd harm their environment and affect their ecology over the long run because of their lack in market competition. Such economic growth lacks momentum. They would not stand out in relative advantages and competition in this regard.
The third is green, or an environmental approach, which in China, as we all know, is a very severe problem. Yes. And to certainly have a society in the broadest sense that is prosperous or moderately prosperous, you can't have a polluted one. So how do these kinds of factors, because that generally fights against GDP growth, because you're making the productivity less because you have to stop the pollutants.
Right. Well, it doesn't really fight against productivity. What it does is it bunches up the costs up front and the benefits in the future. Because a green environment is not only just pleasant, it's also economically much more efficient, because the cost of pollution in terms of the health of workers and the lower working life is much greater. The problem for China, and this is a little bit like education, investing in education is always a good thing, but remember that the costs of the investment are bunched up today, and the benefits you don't get for another 20 years or longer. So these are definitely things that China should be doing, but they don't address the imbalances. Again,
unless China's environment is cleaned up, the Chinese dream cannot be realized. National rejuvenation is not compatible with massive pollution. The basics are no secret. Laws must be enforced, and penalties must hurt. When officials are evaluated on their environmental record, they will change their behavior. Innovative ideas should be cheered, such as Zhejiang's eco-compensation system, and incentives should become more market-based. It takes courage to take risks. Even though green is one of the 5 major development concepts, and thus of highest national importance, the process is protracted, so relentless commitment is required. Moreover, part of the solution lies in what counts for quality of life and human value. China's future must be green.